Alright, let's talk about Supergirl. You guys know I was a huge fan of the recent Superman movie with David Cornsweet. I went so far as to say that if David is not the definitive screen version of Superman, he's like tied with Christopher Reeve as the definitive screen version of Superman. I also just really enjoyed the movie and its hopeful message and its insistence that if you have the power to do something good, you should do it. Even if it's hard, even if people tell you not to. It also took a pretty blatantly pro-Palestine position, and I'm all for that. All in all, I thought it was an excellent, maybe not absolutely perfect, but excellent start to the big screen components of James Gunn's new DCU. And I've watched it several times since. My opinion has stayed the same. I just think it's a great movie, beginning to end. I think there are probably more exciting Superman movies you could make, but for a debut movie for the character, meant to introduce this version of him to us, I can't think of anything that would be, like, objectively better. And James Gunn's gone on the record saying that not everything in his DCU is going to be all, like, bright colors and optimism like that. But I was still expecting a similar level of storytelling. And so far, I haven't watched a ton of Creature Commandos yet, but it's been good. And Peacemaker is good, like season, I think it's only, how many seasons of that are there? Season 2 is the one that's canon to the DCU. It is still good either way, even if it's technically the only one that is. And the new Lantern show, the upcoming Lantern show, looks like it's going to be really good too. Obviously, I don't know yet, and it's going to be a very different tone than either this or Superman, but it looks like it's going to be solid. So it's not like I've lost faith in the DCU in general. And I want to preface this, the rest of this review by saying, I liked Supergirl. I liked this movie. But I didn't love it. And I think I like it in spite of it, rather than because of it a lot of the time. And that's really a shame, because this was everyone's, like, if Superman was their first impression, this is their, like, assurance that that first impression wasn't wrong. And after how disappointing the DCEU was a lot of the time, I'm already seeing people starting to jump ship from the DCU now after this movie, because it was not up to the standard they were expecting. And so, coming out of it, I realized my main takeaways from this going into the rest of this franchise needs to be whether or not Millie is a good Supergirl, and whether or not I feel like this is removed enough from what is going to be the ongoing narrative of the rest of the DCU that its weaknesses aren't really going to make a difference. And I think both of those things are technically true. Millie's a good Supergirl. She's in particular good as this version of Kara who's got this kind of carefree, not much to live for, nothing to lose kind of attitude. Very damaged by the loss of her people essentially twice over, with her love for and her relationship with Crypto being really the only thing that's kind of holding her together. That being the thing that is threatened, like from her perspective, threatened by the villain in this movie. But, and I'm not going to spoil a ton in this review, I promise, because I still think you should see this movie. But, mild spoiler, she does undergo an arc in this movie, and it does end up having a similar message to Superman, where people with the power to help should help. It's just, rather than Clark already knowing that, Kara has to kind of come to that realization and become the kind of person that wants to live that. That's what this movie was ultimately about, and I think Millie played that arc very, very well. I just don't think the movie that compelled her to run through that arc was necessarily great. Performances all around were good. The girl with her companion, what was her name? Doesn't matter. She was good. Jason Momoa as Lobo, what we got of him, despite me not really feeling like he gelled into this movie super well, he was really good. He definitely had fun playing the character. He's always wanted to play the character, apparently. So he was good. I wouldn't mind seeing more of him. The performance of the villain, the main villain, was fine. Even if I did think they made some baffling choices with him, because this is based off of a comic run. I think it's just called Women of Tomorrow. I don't think I ever finished it. But I've read about the plot of it, and I read part of it, and I've seen a ton of artwork from it. This is loosely based on that, and I think comic book fans in particular are disappointed in this movie because it's not enough like the comic it's supposed to be based on. That comic, while I don't super love the penciling on the characters. I think they feel like too ethereal looking a lot of the time. They're good. It's still good pencil work. It's just not my taste. And my god, the locations in that comic are so beautiful. And they're intended to be. Not just because, like, drawing beautiful things is fun, but because it's supposed to contrast the beauty of the greater galaxy with the atrocities of some of the worst people living in it. Those being the people that Kara ultimately ends up facing off with in the comic. And the villain in that comic was, at least as far as I remember, just a guy. He was kind of a handsome, charismatic guy who just happened to be an absolute piece of garbage. Just the worst kind of person, committing atrocities left and right. And in this movie, he's just like a Mad Max villain, and not even a particularly good one. And, like, again, the performance was fine. It's just, it wasn't what he was in the comic, despite, I'm pretty sure, being named the same thing. And it was just so much more cliche than the source material. Which apparently the director didn't even read or something. I don't know. It just bummed me out. Because the story is really toned down from comic to movie. And, like, they would have needed an R rating to actually tell the story of the comic. And, like, I don't think anybody wanted that. But, like, just to cover all my bases here, the story is toned down. And, God, everything just looks so ugly and gritty everywhere. It's just, like, some of the least appealing locations from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Just everything looks like that in this movie, basically. And they had such a beautiful comic to work from, and they took nothing visually from it, except, like, maybe the framing of a couple of shots. That's, I think, the biggest bummer for me. It's like when the MCU did, oh god, what was his name? The villain in Love and Thunder did his story. Or when they did their version of Hela. And, like, I don't think either one was necessarily bad. I think that villain was, like, the best thing about Love and Thunder. But, like, their runs in the comics, their stories in the comics, their power sets, their personalities, their histories are so interesting. But now, because they were done in this truncated and completely reconfigured way in the MCU, we can never get a proper version of them or their stories in the MCU. Now that we have done this comic in the DCU, we can never get a proper adaptation that actually looks like the real thing in the DCU. It'll never happen. And I think that's what bums me out the most about this as an adaptation. I guess you could do because they gave Hela in the MCU the power set from, I think, literally the villain from they put in Love and Thunder, wasn't it? Am I right about that? I don't know. But they gave her a different power set with her ability to, like, spawn weapons and stuff. And so, like, you can still do elements of one story in another one later. Maybe we'll get some of the beautiful locations from the Woman of Tomorrow comic elsewhere. I just really would have loved to see them in the story that was adapting it, you know? I also really don't understand or like the fact that there's just, like, human music all over the goddamn galaxy, apparently, in the DCU. Like, this movie, people have been saying it, and I agree. This movie, to its detriment, was trying to be a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It just should not have done that. I understand that's an aesthetic people know and like, but they should have gone a different way. I don't think it worked at all, especially not when, you probably heard about this too, it was like big climactic action piece, and there's this needle drop, and it's just bad. It just kills the tension in what was supposed to be like the big climactic moment of the entire movie. It ruined it. It made it, it just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's something you have, it's like watching a train wreck. You just have to see it to understand why you can't look away, yet you're horrified, you know? And there's some people speculating that this movie was originally going for an R rating and then that got changed, or they pushed their PG-13 a little too hard and then had to kind of cut it up to get the rating they wanted, one or the other. Because the editing in this movie is often baffling. There's like one scene where Lobo kills a major villain, and it is just edited so bafflingly bad, as like the primary example, that something had to have been cut out there that they hadn't originally intended to be cut out. Maybe that absolutely stupid and ill-advised needle drop in the climax was an attempt to deliberately undercut the tension to try to bring that rating down. Because, like, genuinely, the filmmaking team on this movie is competent. Like, they're competent people. They have shown themselves to be competent people. I can't understand, unless this movie had to be, like, seriously, severely recut in post, I can't understand why it would feel so often, like 3 or 4 times, which is a lot in, like, a finished product, you know? Why it would feel like they were trying to make their movie worse on purpose. And it's not always bad, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, we're missing the beautiful scenery from the comic, and yes, the music choices are unfortunate, but the music's still good, the action's good. I really liked a lot of the fights in this, especially the ones where Kara was a little more vulnerable than she would be somewhere like Earth. It felt more, you know, real and tense, and they were still good action pieces. And the locations for what they were trying to go for, still looked good. They were well realized. Kara's arc was intact. I liked it. I liked seeing her reach that point where she realizes that she can be the thing that she lives for. She and her strength and her ability to make things better for the people who have been left in the same kind of lot in life that she was when she was younger, making their lives better with her power, with what makes her special. That could be her reason for going on. That was all done really well. Millie played it really well. Her bond with Crypto was done really well. He was maybe the best thing about this movie overall, like quantitatively, you know? Like, all that was really good. It was really solid. I liked seeing Kara beat the shit out of these people. I already mentioned I thought Lobo was pretty good. I am, at the end of the day, looking forward to seeing more of this version of Kara, especially now that she's gone through this arc. I guess she's going to be in the next Superman movie. I don't know how big her role is going to be, but I really hope she's in it a lot. She interacted with Clark a little bit in this movie, kind of, you know. And I liked their interactions. I like to see that he's trying to help her find her place. But I also like that she had to kind of find her place herself, you know. I want to see them interact more. There was a lot to like here. It's just that lot to like was in a package, an overall package that I think you should see it, but maybe it would be okay to wait until it's streaming. You don't need to see this in the theater, probably. But I mentioned that David is probably the definitive on-screen version of Superman at this point. So is Millie the definitive on-screen version of Supergirl? We've got some interesting other contenders, right? Like I forgot the name of the Arrowverse version of Supergirl is still pretty good, even though she was basically just girl Clark Kent. She was still pretty good. And the Flash movie version of Supergirl, despite being a very different take, was probably the best thing about that movie. Except, I guess Batman was pretty cool too. But that bad movie, that's beside the point. That's a bad movie. So, how does she stack up against those? Well, I think she's better than both of them. Don't think she's the definitive on-screen version of Supergirl, though. That's the, in my opinion, version from My Adventures with Superman, which I know is kind of a different take, but I would die for her. And she's a cartoon, so end of the day, she's still my favorite, but Millie's still very good. And I think she will fit well in the rest of the DCU. I just think it's a bummer that her debut movie couldn't have been stronger. It could have been great, and it wasn't. It was still pretty good, though. I still liked seeing it. I just wished it had been better. And I want to be clear, I did a review a long time ago of Batman v Superman, and I gave that actually a pretty positive review, basically saying that if you break it down into its component parts and just watch it for, you know, Batman fighting Superman in live action, and the team up against Doomsday in live action, if you just watch it for those individual set pieces and go into it expecting to derive enjoyment from those individual set pieces, you'll probably like it. It's probably worth seeing, and it's okay for those things. I want to be clear, I'm not saying this movie is only good in that same way. Like, if you go into this expecting to see these individual action set pieces, or you go into it just for Kara's arc, that it's good, and like throw out the rest is still okay. It's still an okay movie. It's still an enjoyable movie. Am I making any sense at this point? I'm probably not, because I'm referencing a review that no one has watched. Let's just skip right to my conclusion statement. I like this movie. I would say I loved certain things about it. I didn't love it, though. And I do recommend you seeing it at some point. Just don't feel like you have to hurry about it. And, end of the day, I still think the DCU shows a lot of potential. After all, I didn't stop watching the MCU after Thor the Dark World, right? Like, I don't know if this is as bad as Thor the Dark World. But that's another one where I would say it's only really good for a few set pieces, you know? So I don't even think this is as bad as Thor the Dark World. But, like, I didn't stop watching the MCU after Thor the Dark World. I'm not going to stop watching the DCU after this. I like what they've done with it so far otherwise. And I like enough of what they did here. I'm going to keep with it. There you go. That's it. That's the end. Before I start rambling again. If you have seen this movie, and try not to get any more spoilery in your responses than I did in my review. If you have seen this movie, what did you think of it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.